Alright, pop quiz, who is this character? That's right, Satoshi. Pokemon is a wonderful worldwide franchise, though one thing that does get annoying are the character names. Not saying that they're bad or anything, but there is a lot going on. For one thing, characters are going to have different names based on the region and language that you're enjoying the franchise in. That isn't necessarily the case with every video game or every anime, but with Pokemon, a series predominantly aimed at younger kids, especially in the beginning, and that made a worldwide leap in the late 90s, it is a franchise that wasn't just translated to different languages, it was also localized. Now there's a whole huge discussion that we can have about localization, whether it's ethical, whether it's needed necessarily, but the fact remains that Pokemon was in fact localized, the original games, and even today it still is. There are some things that I dislike about it, but some things that I actually do like, and those would be the names that each character has, at least in English, because obviously these characters have their own Japanese names in the originals, but Pokemon names in general, not just for human characters but the Pokemon themselves, are always just filled with puns, so I really find it interesting how the localization team at least comes up with the names in English. So with Pokemon coming up on its 30th anniversary, why not take a quick look back at the original games? And sure, anime, we can talk about Ash for a moment, because he is a really interesting one. Obviously in the original Japanese, he is known as Satoshi, named after the original creator of Pokemon, Satoshi Tajiri, but at least in the English version he is called Ash Ketchum, given a last name, and I figure some of the reason for this is at least to make him a little more relatable, but even just the first name Ash at least shares something in common with Satoshi, you know, the SH sound and there's an A in there somewhere. And then there's also the fact that it was a very unique name then and even now, but when it comes to the gym leaders of the original Pokemon games, we can start things off with Brock. Go and pick any character, head down to the name section of Bulbapedia, and you'll see just how many different names they'll have based on the region. Obviously for the moment I'm really only going to be looking at Japanese and English because those are the two languages that I find interesting. Then I know basically nothing about Japanese, but at least I'm going to be going off of the notes that are listed here. But really the ones I do want to focus on are the interesting puns that we get in English. So first of all, Takeshi is a name that fits the character pretty well, but also then when it comes to Brock, that was one that was chosen for the video games first and foremost. It's a quick, simple name and very obviously just contains the word rock in it, relating to the type of Pokemon that it uses. But at least in English as well, it being a simple short name gives you a sense of sturdiness. When it comes to Misty, she's also known as Kasumi, which itself is very layered, that's just the way that Japanese is, but even then they were able to really preserve that in English as well because Misty is just a regular person name. But again, with Brock and Misty, those just being regular names that we have in English, also in a similar way to the original Japanese, are able to preserve that sense of the type of Pokemon that they use. Lieutenant Surge is a very interesting one. In Japanese, he's named Matisse, I guess after a flower, which a lot of Pokemon characters are normally named after flowers, but I think the really funny part is that there's no indication of his rank. Meanwhile in English, they decided to give him an actual rank, that being Lieutenant, and Surge is also a really funny one. It's that double meaning, because it is like an electrical surge, but it does also sound like Sarge, short for Sergeant, which is a different rank, but I guess we'll go by the Lieutenant first and foremost. Erica I found really interesting, because that one is another regular name, but it is actually just her name in Japanese as well, that one having some meaning that relates to flowers, and obviously in Japanese it would be pronounced a little more like Erika, but again that is also a name that exists in English. And with her design being one of the most Japanese here out of everybody, it makes sense to keep it. Though we have Koga, who gets a different name. Originally his name is Kyo, which at least here we get to keep the same length and still have a name that starts with a K sound, which this one again still coming from Japanese roots but still being different. Probably something a little easier for English speakers to read and understand, I guess. Blaine is the really weird one though. In Japanese he's called Katsura, named after a plant as well but having some layers in terms of the fire inspiration. But in English Blaine isn't even a real name. Wait, is Blaine a real name? Hang on one second. Well, I'll be darned, Blaine is an actual name. Okay, never mind, I take it all back. That one is another funny genius one, because again it does sound like blaze for fire, but I guess now that I read it and hear it out loud, it does sound like an old man kind of name. Sabrina I find really funny as well, originally named Natsume after a plant, but in English Sabrina sounds a little more mystical and definitely has an association with Sabrina the Teenage Witch, so I feel like that was a really big inspiration as well, which I always find those kinds really funny, where they're sort of subtly named after somebody in pop culture. Giovanni has got to be one of my favorites of the bunch because of the little layers that it has as well, originally named Sakaki. Now Giovanni contains a prefix of Geo relating to Earth, and even though that does come from a different language, it's something we understand in English because that is something that just takes from a bunch of other languages. The point is that the full name Giovanni sounds very Italian, which the stupid stereotyping Americans are going to relate to the Mafia, which is a pretty good interpretation of the character as he is the leader of Team Rocket. I also want to take a quick look at the Elite Four because they're ones that I didn't really know beforehand, because Lorelei, originally named Kana, apparently has her English name come from mythology being named after a siren. something I did not know before, and it's a really cool connection, but the name Lorelei still kind of feels like something that flows and is very elegant and it fits for her character, being an ice-type trainer, but also kind of having an undertone of strength and power as well. And speaking of strength and power, we also get Bruno, which again, just a very simple name in English, but it is one that you would normally associate with big and strong as well, just, you know, B names, kind of similar to what we had with Brock before, but now just really kind of elevated to the maximum degree. Agatha, originally named Kikuko, has one of my favorite English names in the series, because yeah, sure, she is an old woman, and Agatha is an older type of name that you don't hear all that much in the modern day, but it is also a little nod to the mystery novelist Agatha Christie. Finally, we have Lance, originally named Wataru, now taking his English name from a weapon that was often used by knights in medieval times. And once again, Lance is just an actual first name, but it has that cool little double meaning to relate him to dragon-type Pokemon, and also really fit his vibe as the dragon-type master. I hope that really didn't feel like too much of a tangent or anything, but I just wanted to talk about them all because once again, we're coming up on the 30th anniversary of Pokemon, the first to do localization like this type, but I do find it really interesting how it is something that has continued even to this day. Every brand new Pokemon character that we end up getting has a name localized similar to this. Even in a world where Pokemon is enjoyed by people of all ages and basically everybody knows that it originates from Japan, and that anime has become so mainstream that anybody can walk into a shopping mall and see products with Tanjiro and Nezuko on it, and be able to actually point them out and name them, maybe not pronounce the name exactly right. Look, Ma, they got t-shirts of Tanjiro and Nezuko. But the point is, I think that mainstream anime as a whole and all of this has kind of shown that everybody can just accept any human name as anything. Sure, maybe you might get the occasional person not really understanding it all that well, but now more than ever, especially since the franchise is worldwide, I think it would make a lot more sense if characters had the same name in every language. It's an aspect of the Pokemon Horizons anime that I really do like, maybe aside from a few pronunciation differences between languages. For the most part, every character, Liko, Roy, Dot, Molly, Freed, and so on have all the same names in every language. Once again, I'm not totally against all parts of localization because I think there are some aspects of it that are important. I think there really is an art to that sort of thing, and I just went on gushing about some of the names that we had in the original Pokemon Red and Blue, but again, comparatively to several other franchises, like most characters keep the same name, at least in English, though I think for the moment we should really come to understand that there are differences between each language for these characters, and understanding exactly why that is the case. I still am a big fan of Ayano and the layered pun that her name is, especially when compared to the Japanese, where she's called Nanjimo, which comes from a phrase that is essentially asking a question, but in English her being called Iono has a similar feeling because it could be said in response like Ayano, meaning I don't know, but at the same time it also brings in the element of ion, something relating to electricity, which then now is a layer that exists in English that didn't really exist before. So I think that is really cool. I'm gonna be super honest, this did all kind of stem from a comment I got on TikTok where I made a video about Ayano, and somebody in the comments tried to correct me saying that it should be pronounced Iono because she is Japanese, when that isn't even her name in Japanese. In Japanese she's known as Nanjimo, so in English it should be pronounced Ayano because it's supposed to sound like I don't know. Yeah, I don't know, maybe I went a little too far. So yeah, even though I really do appreciate all the work that is put into localizing these names for different languages, moving forward I really would prefer if all the human characters kept the same names. And I think basically everybody knows by now that Pokemon comes from Japan anyway, so why not continue embracing it in that aspect? The Pokemon themselves, maybe those should keep getting funny puns in each language because I still really do like those and they're made up little guys, rather than being actual humans. I know, weird video, but let me know what you think in the comments below. Which characters have your favorite names, whether it be in Japanese or translated elsewhere to other languages, because I would really like to know. Again, I really did only focus on English and only highlighted a few characters, but there are so many more and I always love to hear everybody else's stories. For the moment, I'm really excited to see whatever Pokemon reveals for the 30th anniversary, and to see if maybe any of the character names get to stay the same at least a little bit. Thank you to every channel member for your continued support, including the Great Gators, That's Ven, Impbrush, Mara, Jayza, Justin Dowes, Alex with Shiny Hunts, KoiKoi13, Cemetery Hill, Cheez-It62, GatorKid509, TF, Mathaclock947, Taijirai, Phantom, and Quago. If you'd like to support, see your name here, get access to emotes for comments, live streams, sometimes early videos, and our members Discord server, as well as the podcast, you can become a channel member today. You can also follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky as well for more memes. Anyway, this is GatorX, and I will catch you all later.
This is a Pikachu, Ash.
Journey back.
Hi, I'm Brock.
Back to the early days.
Charmander. Squirtle, Squirtle.
Back to where the journey began.
My bike! Where's my new bike? Maybe not that far back.
Catch Pokemon, The Road to Indigo, coming up next, right here on Kids WB.